Okay, hallelujah. So today we are going to have an in-depth discussion because we are in this season. We are transitioning into this season in this captivity that we live in, where people begin to get festive and they begin to celebrate. And in a lot of instances, when we come into the walk, we come out of these traditions and these customs of man and these traditions surrounding the winter solstice. So today I wanted to focus specifically on that. And the name of today's discussion is Satan is real, Santa is not. Stop lying to your children. And we're going to go into an in-depth discussion on the history of who the world calls Santa Claus and how that relates to us here in this captivity. So to start, I want to share a tab and ask a question. So does anybody know who the person in blackface is? Does anybody know who that is? No is an okay answer.
I believe that is what they call a Saint Pete, I believe.
Hallelujah. That's close. That's close, Aki. His name is Black Pete. That's the name of this individual. And we're going to read a little bit about who the world calls Santa Claus and Black Pete. So let me scroll down a little bit. So the Dutch tradition of Santa Claus and his blacked up servant, Black Pete, is safe from United Nations interference, a UNESCO official has assured Holland. So the article is, UN drops Black Pete racism charge against the Dutch. In mid-November, St. Nicholas, or Saint Santa Claus, who is white, arrives by steamboat in Amsterdam, bringing presents for children, helped by mischievous servants dressed up as page boys, wearing black makeup, curly wigs, and with large painted-on red lips. A Facebook site defending, this is the Dutch pronunciation, but I'm not even going to try to butcher that, Black Pete, and the Dutch festival of Sinterklaas, which gave rise to Christmas tradition of Santa Claus, has become the country's most popular ever. So I just want y'all to get a depiction of Black Pete and to commit this depiction to memory, because we are going to revisit this at a later time. We are going to revisit this a little bit later on in today's discussion. I'm going to share another tab here and just touch on a few items relative to the similarities between the two quote unquote days, because one day was actually just adopted from another. So this is from the website Sons of Vikings. And again, I always tell people, please, to do your own research. Don't just believe anything that I'm bringing forth just the sake of me bringing it forth. All of this information is available on the internet. And if you do your due diligence, you'll understand that we're all accounted to take the time to really study and to show ourselves approved, so that we can give an answer as to why we serve the Most High. So we get an understanding as to why we don't do certain things, and we get a more intricate definition of why certain things are in place in the society that we live. So here are a few more similarities, or should I say inspirations, that transition from the Yule festival into the Christmas festival that people celebrate in the current dispensation in time. So one is that Santa lives in the North Pole. Odin is said to live in a supernatural world called Asgard, a realm removed from our reality and only accessible by crossing the Bifrost Bridge or ascending the trunk of Drizil. Odin often battles against the ice giants or frost giants. In comparison, a good portion of Scandinavia is inside the Arctic Circle, uninhabited frozen places in which life is nearly impossible. The early people of Scandinavia naturally equated those northern, mountainous, and hospitable regions of the midnight sun and the northern lights as a place of magic and the land of the gods and giants. I'm going to read down it. Santa, the next bullet point I want to read to is Santa was originally called Father Christmas. One of Odin's most popular titles is that word of all father. As previously mentioned, he is also called the Yule Father. Now, folklorist Margaret Baker stated the following: the appearance of Santa Claus or Father Christmas, whose day is the 25th of December, owes much to Odin, the old blue-headed, cloaked, white-bearded gift bringer of the north, who rode the midwinter sky on his 8-footed steed Sleipnir, visiting his people with gifts. Odin, over time, transformed into Father Christmas, then Santa Claus, prospered with St. Nicholas and the Christ child, and became a leading player on the Christmas stage. And I want to scroll back up to one other point. So another belief that they had, as far as Odin was concerned, is that he knew if they were bad or good. This is the top bullet point that I'm reading right now. Odin was considered the far-seeing, all-knowing deity of Norse mythology. He sent out his two ravens, Hugin and Munin, every morning to collect news from the 9 worlds. And every night, these supernatural birds would report back to him. Odin would walk the earth searching for wisdom and knowledge and checking in on people that he favored as well as people that he distrusted. Odin was also the chooser of the slain, who along with Freya chose who judged the worthiness of people to take place in Valhalla. So here are some depictions of the similarities, but I wanted to read this this last bullet point last because it focused on these 2 ravens. And I want to go ahead and give you a deeper understanding or a depiction of these 2 ravens. And what we're going to do with today's discussion is we're going to look at some visual content and some verbal content about the backstory of Christmas and where it comes from. And then at the latter end of today's discussion, we're going to go into some scriptures. So I'm going to talk about these 2 ravens.
In the realm of Norse mythology, 2 ravens soar over the lands, Hugin and Munin. But they're no ordinary birds. They belong to Odin, the All-Father, who sends them out at dawn to gather knowledge. Hugin, whose name means thought, and Munin, memory, traverse the realms, seeing all, hearing all. Every evening they return to whisper their secrets to Odin. Through them he knows what no one else can. But Odin fears the day when one, or both, might not return. Without them, even he would be blind to the world's shifting fates. Are they messengers of wisdom, or omens of something darker? Only Odin knows. If you enjoyed this journey into Norse mythology, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more mystical tales.
You know, one of the things that stood out to me when I was listening to this short video was when the orator said, "Are these omens of something darker?" And we're going to bring this full circle as it relates to Christmas, as it relates to what it means, as it relates to the symbology associated with these things. So I want to go ahead and make a transition from Odin into what is depicted as modern day Santa Claus. So if you could bear with me one moment. I'm going to go ahead and share this tab. All right. So I'm only going to read a few quotes and sentences from this Wikipedia presentation, just to get an understanding of where the term Santa Claus comes from and how the transition was made from Odin and Norse mythology to the present day Santa Claus. So Santa Claus, or St. Nicholas, is a legendary figure based on St. Nicholas, patron saint of children. So that the etymology of the word Santa Claus, it's really just a variation of Saint Nick through the Dutch language. So if we scroll down here, we're going to get into some history concerning this transition from Odin to Santa Claus. Okay. So And it reads here that Jacob Grimm, Helene Adeline Gerber, and others have drawn parallels between Santa Claus and his helpers and the wild hunt of Woden or Odin. Woden is another name for Odin, a major deity among the Germanic peoples who was worshipped in Northern and Western Europe prior to Christianization. Riding the white horse of Sleipnir, he flew through the air as the leader of the wild hunt, always accompanied by two black ravens, Hugin and Munin. Listen closely. These helpers will listen just like Black Pete at the chimney, which was just a hole in the roof at the time, to tell Woden about the good and bad behavior of the mortals. Historian Rita Gischeri asserts that it is likely that certain pre-Christian elements survived in the honoring of Saint Nicholas. Indeed, it seems clear that the tradition contains a number of elements that are not ecclesiastical in origin. Now, I want to take you guys back to this picture one more time to make sure that it's fresh in your memory of this individual that they termed Black Pete. We're going to get one more quick depiction of Black Pete. There he is alongside Santa Claus. So Black Pete, we're going to get an understanding of what Black Pete's role was as it relates to who the world calls Santa Claus, and what his role was and how it transitioned from what it originally was in the original Norse culture to what it means or signifies in the Dutch celebration of this day. So just give me a moment. I'm going to go ahead and share another screen. Let's learn a little bit about Black Pete and his origins. Let's get a little wider on the screen. Okay. According to Helene Adeline Gerber and other historians, the origin of Santa Claus and his helpers have been linked by some to the wild hunt of Odin. While riding the white horse Sleipnir, he flew through the air as the leader of the wild hunt. He was always accompanied by two black ravens, Hugin and Munin. These helpers would listen, like Black Pete, at the chimneys of the homes they visited to tell Odin about the good and bad behavior of the mortals. The St. Nicholas tradition contains a number of elements that are not ecclesiastical in origin. In medieval iconography, St. Nicholas is sometimes presented as taming a chained demon who may or may not be black. Now, we got to listen and we got to really read between the lines here, and we have to use discernment about the language that they're going to use and the things that they're going to portray as truths, possibly half-truths, and we have to apply this with the knowledge that we have of how the world views us and with the knowledge that we have of how the world desires us to be viewed by others. So I'm going to read that sentence again. St. Nicholas is sometimes presented as taming a chained demon who may or may not be black. However, no hint of a companion, demon, servant, or any other human or human-like fixed companion to the saint is found in visual and textual sources from the Netherlands from the 16th until the 19th century. And the thing that I found odd here, and I didn't have the ability to really dig into research what the visual and textual source said before the 16th century, is that the slave trade and the conquest of the Americas began in the 15th century. But that's neither here nor there. According to a long-standing theory first proposed by Carl Meeson, Black Pete and his equivalents in Germanic Europe were originally presented as one or more enslaved demons forced to assist their captor. These chained and fire-scorched demons may have been redeveloped as black-skinned humans during the early 19th century in the Netherlands in the likeness of Moors who work as servants for Saint Nicholas. Now, the conversation about Moors and what that term means is a whole nother discussion for another time. But we know that at its base, it's a black-skinned person. Others believe Black Pete to be a continuation of a custom in which people with blackface appeared in winter solstice rituals. One or more demons working as helpers for the saint can still be found in various Austrian, German, Swiss, Hungarian, Czechoslovakian, Slovakian, and Polish Saint Nicholas traditions in the characters of Krampus, Pierre Fouettard, Schmutzel, Perkta, Neck, Ruprecht, Rubles, Handstrap, Little Babushka, Pelzebuk, Cloudbauf, and Belzenik. These companions of Saint Nicholas are often depicted as a group of closely related figures who accompany Saint Nicholas through the territories formerly controlled by the, I don't even want to call it holy, by the evil Roman Empire. The characters act as foils to the benevolent gift giver or strict disciplinarians who threaten to thrash or abduct disobedient children. Mythologist Jacob Grimm associate the character with the pre-Christian Ruach Kobold, who could be either benevolent or malicious. So they started out saying that they couldn't say for certain whether or not that this demon transition was associated with the demon having blackface. You got to read between the lines and catch the sorcery. So they said, well, we don't know if the demon had blackface, but you have blackface individuals that are accommodating, or they are the helpers of this quote unquote Santa Claus in the Dutch tradition. But then when you go to these other traditions and other places in Europe, they're letting you know that the person or the persons or the deities that are accompanying this quote unquote Santa Claus are actually demons. And we're going to get another witness.
If you don't live in this small village in the Czech Republic, this is probably a strange sight to behold. St. Nicholas going from house to house with grim reapers and demons in tow, with clanging bells and chains trying to find out who's been naughty or nice. The Associated Press reports the village of Valašská Polanka is where people clad in these costumes can be seen roaming the streets. St. Nicholas will give children candy to soothe them after seeing the frightening costumes and masks, and the demons and reapers can be seen having a little tussle with some of the residents. The tradition reportedly dates back before Christianity, when the villagers would use the masks to defend themselves against winter demons. It's been passed down from generation to generation. One person who dressed as a demon said the mask he used, he got from his father.
This is basically showing in real time this festival or this this way that they go about keeping this day in other regions. So, you know, now that we have got a basic understanding of where this tradition originates from and how we are depicted in this tradition, I do want to go ahead and get a couple of scriptures regarding this. And it looks a couple of the pages that I had pulled up are no longer being presented, but it's all good because I know what we've done. Even if I'm not able to present everything as I had initially intended, I believe that the point was made. You know what I mean? And I always recognize that, you know, when presenting these things, the Father, in some instances, desires for people to do their own research, to do their own due diligence. So I'm hoping that after we get through with today's discussion, that each individual can do their own research and present the information to others as you see fit. So I want to start out with the book of Matthew, chapter 7 and verse 7. The book of Matthew, chapter 7 and verse 7. Ask and it shall be given you, seek and ye shall find, knock and it shall be opened unto you. Why aren't people coming across this knowledge and applying it? I got a biblical answer. We're going to Ecclesiastes chapter 7 and verse 7. We loading up on sevens with these answers right now. Ecclesiastes 7 and verse 7. Surely oppression maketh a wise man mad, and a gift destroyeth the heart. We are oppressed people. And those of us that are wise to our oppression, we're not okay with the status quo. We ask questions. We want to dig a little bit deeper as to why we're in this condition. And the more we dig into why we're in this condition, the more we knock on that door and Abba opens it, the more that he reveals onto us, the more that we recognize how wicked traditions are, how they have conspired to conceal information from us. The more that we recognize who we are as a people, we get a conviction not to engage in certain activities and traditions because we recognize that these traditions were intent on destroying us. A lot of people, even if you present this information, the blowback of not having Christmas for their children is not worth the stress. They may have a spouse that's not in agreement with their point of view, so they don't recognize the importance of recognizing that these are traditions that are not meant for our betterment. You know what I mean? When you think about it just on a psychological level, right? From a psychological level, we have an obese Caucasian man coming into our home when nobody's awake, leaving everything that a child desires underneath a tree. And this is depicted as something that our children look forward to. This right here is an outlandish sorcery, but people don't recognize it. They're not connecting the dots on what you're doing to a child psychologically in an atmosphere where the child is already oppressed, where you are creating a level of trust between that child and potentially somebody that may mean harm to them based off of the depictions that we are experience in this captivity. So just looking at it from that perspective, when we read that scripture that says a gift destroys the heart, our people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. And then when the knowledge is presented, we are so comfortable in our captivity that we don't want to make the hard decisions, and we don't want to put into action the hard decisions in order to do away with these things that are not meant for our betterment. You know, and the Father gives us specific instructions on how we are to deal with idols, how we are to deal with the traditions of the other nations. And he's trying to present us with the information that we need to make better decisions so that we can be more able to lead our households and to raise our children so that they don't get caught up in a Babylonian frame of mind, and they get raised to live out a prosperous and abundant life in a Yah-led frame of mind. I want to get 1 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse 21. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 20 through 21. Book of 1 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse 20. But I say that the things which the Gentiles sacrifice, they sacrifice unto devils, and not to Elohim. And I would not that ye should have fellowship with devils. Ye cannot drink the cup of Adonai, your master, the cup of Yahuwah, and the cup of devils. Ye cannot be partakers of your master Adonai, Yahusha's table, and the table of devils. You know, this is something that was so prevalent with our ancestors before we were chased out of Jerusalem in 70 AD. They always wanted to mix Yah in with these different cultures. They want a little bit of Baal, they want a little bit of Astaroth, they want a little bit of, you know what I mean, Balkis, whatever deity that had captivity over us at the moment. People want bits and pieces, but they want to include Yah in that. And it's the same story, different generation. People want to say, well, you know what? It's not that big of a deal if I keep Christmas and have a meal. I'm doing it for the kids. I'm doing it for the family. And when you do the research and you recognize that you're doing the same thing that our ancestors did, however many generations ago, it's wrapped up in a nice little bow and it looks real cute and pretty, but it probably did the same thing back in the day. You know what I'm saying? So we have to be vigilant. We have to have a desire to know our Father. If we could have a desire to complete college courses, if we could have a desire to learn how to sell real estate, if we could have a desire to learn how to play the stock market and put effort into studying and figuring out ways to get better at the things that we want for our own flesh, for our own desires, then we could put that same amount of effort and desire into finding out who Yah is and finding out what it is that he expects of us. So I want to get another tab. The original tab that I had got deleted. So let me see if I could find exactly what it is I'm looking for. Hopefully this is it. That's not it. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to go into some information about these sun deities. We have another discussion that we did. We actually did two discussions of recent. We had two discussions where we focused on the pagan holidays and where they originate from. And then we had another discussion last year around this time, which discussed in more detail how the quote unquote sun deity started in Babylon with Nimrod, with Tammuz, and with Semiramis. And when the Most High came and he confounded their language and they spread into different areas in the earth, they took this false religion along with them. And if I'm able to find the page, I'll pull it up. If not, is this it? Yep, this is it. Okay. This is a brief list of sun deities. The original one that I had went into a lot more detail about these deities that were depicted to be born on December 25th. So we have Horus, we got Buddha, we got Krishna, Zarathustra, and you notice it's all of these different areas, right? Nepal, Ethiopia, India, Iran. We got Hercules in Greece, Mithra in Persia, Dionysus, Tammuz. Now, Tammuz, this is not even the proper depiction of when he was. That's not the proper depiction of when he was actually born. And that's why I wanted to actually have access to the other list that I was looking at. So this list says it was 400 years before Hamashiach, but in actuality, that would put it around 1600 BC. That would put it around 400 BC. And 400 BC is a time where we were going through the Grecian captivity. So the original Babylonian deity of Nimrod, this is what happened right after the flood. So this is probably closer to 2500 BC or something around that, 2000 BC. So really, in all actuality, Tammuz is the oldest sun deity of all of the deities listed because he was the first one. And when I say the oldest, I mean as it relates to the rebirth of the sun, because what they are keeping on December 25th is the rebirth of the sun, which is the shortest day of the year. So it's a winter solstice pagan festival, and they have all of these deities that they associate with that. And then again, this religious system got spread all throughout the earth, but it is a lawless religious system. And we're going to just hit a couple of more scriptures to to just go a little bit deeper as it relates to how this applies to us in this present day captivity and what it means for us scripturally. So when we look at this understanding, especially like for those of us that are out on the highways and byways, and you may be trying to express the understanding of who the world calls Jesus Christ is, and be able to get people a better understanding. And in a lot of instances, something that people will say, well, look, all Jesus Christ is a copy of all of these other traditions that came before him. Tammuz came before him, Mithras came before him, Attis came before him. All of these other depictions came before him. So you're really just serving a deity that copied his traditions from previous traditions. So how do we validate the authenticity of Hamashiach? It's a 3-syllable word. I had to count it in my head. It's a 3-syllable word which authenticates Hamashiach versus all of these copycat deities that our adversary knew that Hamashiach was coming. And he was depicting all different ways to try to plan to overthrow the understanding that people will get when he came to walk the earth. That 3-syllable word is prophecy. We're going to get a couple more scriptures before we close out. The Messiah prophesied that the Roman army would surround and destroy Jerusalem in 70 AD. We're going to get the book of Luke. And we're going to get chapter 21. And we're going to get verses 20 through 24. And when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out. And let not them that are in the countries enter thereinto. For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. But woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. For there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. There's prophecy concerning things that would happen in the future during the time of Hamashiach and before the time of Hamashiach. But they may they may hear you give this as an answer, and they may say, you know what, the Gospels, they weren't written until the 4th century. So Rome sacked Jerusalem in 70 AD. So how do I know that they just didn't write this depiction after it had already happened? Let's express the next prophecy. Or let's go back to verse 24. And it reads, and they shall fall by the edge of the sword, talking about the children of Yisrael, and shall be led away captive into all nations, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. This prophecy was not executed in its completion until over 1,000 years after the Gospels were written, via the transatlantic slave trade. So if anybody on the line has any doubt or any unfamiliarity of who the children of Israel are, if anybody in online world is unaware or has any doubts as to who the true children of Israel are, on our YouTube page, we got a playlist. It's called Our History. There are multiple videos with historical evidence, biblical evidence, archaeological evidence, proving who the children of Israel are in this dispensation in time. But that's another conversation for another time. We also have videos of our personal videos on our YouTube page that will also express proof of who the true children of Israel are, according to prophecy, according to history, archaeology, and etc. So when we talk about all of the different things, the tools that the Bible gives us. If we search to figure out the things that we desire to figure out, Tammuz is mentioned in the Bible. We're going to go there real quick. We're going to the book of Ezekiel, chapter 8. The book of Ezekiel, chapter 8, and I'm going to get verses 12 through 16. Then said he unto me, Son of man, hast thou seen what the ancients of the house of Israel do in the dark? Every man in the chambers of his imagery. For they say, Yahuwah seeth us not. Yahuwah hath forsaken the earth. He said also unto me, Turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abominations that they do. Then he brought me to the door of the gate of Yahuwah's house, which was toward the north, and behold, there sat women weeping for Tammuz. This is back to the understanding that our people were mixing in these other deities with the worship of our Heavenly Father. And this, among other things, is what got us excommunicated out of the land to our present captivity, amongst all of the other captivities that our ancestors experienced before this. Verse 15, then said he unto me, Hast thou seen this, O son of man? Turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abominations than these. Verse 16, and he brought me into the inner court of Yahuwah's house, and behold, at the door of the temple of Yahuwah, between the porch and the altar, were about 25 men, with their backs toward the temple of Yahuwah, and their faces toward the east, and they worshipped the sun toward the east. Sun worship, the rebirth of the sun. And our people, because in a lot of cases, just people in general have a tendency to be spiritually lazy, and they want to trust in what the past is telling them and not use their due diligence and discernment to recognize that men have faults. And in a lot of instances, men are not doing things for righteous and altruistic reasons that you have to study to show yourself approved. Many people are deceived. We're going to go into the book of Revelation, chapter 18. And we're going to get verses 1 through 5. And it reads, After these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen. All of these different deities and these different religious systems are all originated from Babylon. This is the Babylonian worship system. And again, and he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen. It's fallen, and it's become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. For all nations have drunk off the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornications with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. Everybody's drunk on Christmas. Everybody is drunk and under a spell off of Christmas. I hate it now when I go into a store, I'm walking through a store and that Christmas music is on. I'm back at the house singing that Christmas music. I don't even celebrate Christmas no more. I got to, wait a minute, what am I singing in my head? I got to get that up out of here. Because we know what it depicts and we know what the setup is, and it puts the whole entire world, or at least, you know what I mean, and at that particular moment in time, from December 24th to December 25th, and the days surrounding it, everybody's under this lull. Everybody's under this spell. Everybody has this sense of false joy in their heart because of the exchanging of gifts as their heart is being destroyed. Verse 4. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, that ye receive not of her plagues. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and Elohim hath remembered her iniquities. it's a time for people that are still dealing with Christmas and lying to their children and exchanging the gifts and believing it's not that big of a deal to do just a little bit more research on who their Heavenly Father truly is, and the things that incite his anger, and the things that make him joyous and thankful that his creation is serving him and submitted unto him. Before I close out today's discussion, the thing that I want those of us to consider that are online today, as well as those that are going to view this video online in the future, is that, you know, none of these fake deities that people have the nerve to say Hamashiach copied are trying to prepare you for the Hamashiach's return. Everybody is sleepwalking out here and thinking that it's all good. But we're thankful. We're thankful that we have been awakened out of darkness to walk in this everlasting life. And I want to say in closing, as the title of this discussion is, that Satan is real, Santa is not. And I pray this message turns someone's heart to truly serve our Father Yah and put away these vain and strange traditions and customs that are against our Father Yah.